In the year 1994, Nicholas Barclay went missing and was reunited with his family 3 years later. However, something wasn't right. When Nicholas first went missing, his family didn't immediately raise the alarm. He was a troubled kid and had a court hearing scheduled for the day after his disappearance that would determine if he would be sent to a home for juvenile delinquents. His family simply assumed he had run away to avoid the consequences of the hearing. He had only been carrying $5 as far as anyone knew, and hadn't packed any clothing. If he had been planning to run away, his family theorised he would have likely have taken personal items with him. As it was, he had left everything behind. Police opened a missing persons investigation, but there's virtually no leads on where Nicholas could have gone. As he had only $5 to his name, the likelihood of him having secured a ticket on public transportation was low, as was the possibility of him finding room and board somewhere else. It seemed the only explanation was that he hitchhiked out of town, and if he had, there was even less hope of finding him. Then, 3 months later, police received a phone call from Jason Barclay, Nicholas's uncle. He claimed that he'd seen Nicholas try to break into the garage, but when police arrived, Jason told him he'd fled. It was the only lead in this case so far, though it eventually panned out to be a dead end. 3 years later, just as Barclay's family was beginning to lose hope, they received a miraculous phone call. Nicholas Barclay had been found, lost and scared in the middle of a Spanish village. Immediately, he was flown back to the United States and reunited with his family. The family welcomed him back at once with open arms and an open home. They had kept his room just as he left it, and they'd been anxiously awaiting his return. They'd missed him so much that they didn't notice any glaring inconsistencies between the son who had gone missing and the one who had been returned back to them. The Nicholas who went missing in 1994 was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy of 13 with a violent temper and an unruly attitude problem. The Nicholas Barclay who was found in Spain in 1997 was a dark-haired, brown-eyed boy of 16 who was eerily calm and made those around him feel uneasy. Despite the fact that neither looked nor acted like their son, the Barclay family insisted, without a doubt, that the boy was their son, Nicholas Barclay. The harrowing story of the Barclays' pain and its subsequent Hollywood happy ending made national headlines. A missing boy, reunited with his family after years of abuse, drew news crews and reporters to the Barclays' home, day in and day out. It also drew investigators who were determined to find out what had happened to Nicholas Barclay during the 3 years he was missing. According to Nicholas, he had been kidnapped on his way home from the park where he had been playing basketball with his friends. Then, he had been put onto a plane and taken to Europe, where his kidnappers had forced him into a child sex trafficking ring. Eventually, he said, he escaped and made it to safety where he was discovered by local law enforcement. As for his appearance, he said that the kidnappers had changed his eye colour and dyed his hair to conceal his identity. After hearing the account of Nicholas Barclay's ordeal, private investigator Charlie Parker became suspicious. The hair and eye claims were doubtful, and it was unlikely that the kidnappers went to such lengths as to alter his eye colour, or could have even been able to. He was also put off by the difference in personality, though such a traumatic circumstance would possibly result in more subdued demeanour, and the victim withdrawing into themselves. Parker felt it was something more than that. He didn't seem withdrawn, he simply seemed more mature, older, even than his reported 16 years. To Parker's surprise, he was correct. Nicholas Barclay was not, in fact, 16 as he claimed to be, but 23. Furthermore, he wasn't even Nicholas Barclay, but a Frenchman named Frederic Bourdin. He was also known as the Chameleon by Interpol. He was a French criminal and serial imposter. He had spent his entire life impersonating missing children and creating false identities and names. When Bourdin heard the story of the distraught American family looking for their missing son, he had easily slipped into the persona, having gotten the idea when a Spanish police officer suggested that he bore the resemblance to the boy. He was able to keep up the charade for 3.5 months, fooling the Spanish authorities, the FBI, and even the Barclay family. Soon though, Parker realised that Bourdin may not have been fooling the entire Barclay family. Jason, Nicholas's uncle, had apparently begun to question Bourdin's authenticity as his nephew. As soon as Parker asked to interview him, however, Jason committed suicide, the victim of a drug overdose. Jason Barclay's death raised Parker's suspicions even more, and eventually outed Frederic Bourdin to the family. The authorities arrested Bourdin and sentenced him to 6 years in prison, double the recommended time. Once again, the Barclay family was left without their son, the weight of which was so much more the second time after they believed he was finally home. Bourdin, however, didn't believe that the Barclays' grief was real. While in police custody, he proposed a disturbing theory. Why would the Barclay family accept him into their home so willingly, when it was so clear that it wasn't their son, unless they had something to hide? Furthermore, he suggested that one or all of the Barclay family members had murdered Nicholas and adopted Bourdin, knowing full well that he was an imposter, to cover it up. Parker bought into Bourdin's theories and has been working towards proving them ever since, using evidence gleaned from the initial investigations and others that were opened after Bourdin's imprisonment. Parker has been putting together a compelling case. He believes that Nicholas Barclay's rage eventually pushed a family member over the edge. Police have been called to the home on more than one occasion, and the family had vocally expressed their displeasure with his attitude. Jason Barclay's death was also seen as an admission to something, as it happened at an unusual time. There is no body, and there's been no confession, but that of a known criminal. Parker remains confident that the Barclays are not blameless in their son's disappearance, and is hell-bent on discovering exactly what they had to do with it. So far, he has nothing, but that doesn't mean he won't stop trying. I don't have any confessions. There's no body. Murder is very simple and very basic, Frederic Bourdin said. I think something happened inside that house, but I can't prove it.